Where were we? My experience with fasting so far. So in my 3 years, I've done, 3 extended fasts of about 10 days. Done some 5-day fasts, and I intermittent fasted for the last 9 months. But that's a whole other story, because that's where we get into the ketogenic diet, which I'll talk about for sure. And that's all the rage, so how timely. So I did my research, which you should do. Fasting is fascinating, but it's pretty straightforward. Don't eat. Voila. But of course, we're extra cautious because everybody says don't fast and you'll die. But you won't, because starvation doesn't happen for 40 days unless you are already very underweight or you have some kind of health condition. I had none. I was 6'6", 208 pounds, 210 pounds. I wasn't heavy, but I knew I wouldn't waste away. And so, I did so back, we did our research, we read our books. We decided we'd try a 3-day fast, and then we would do a longer fast a couple weeks later. Of course, it takes time. Stress is a big factor. What does fasting mean in your daily life? So we really worked that out. And, you can't do the same things you would do, but you kind of can when you're more experienced, which I'll talk about. And you'll get to see, because while I'm fasting for my 17 days, I'm going to be training, practicing. I do a movement practice that's pretty high intensity at times. And so that's what I found in my journey, was that you can train while on a fasted state, and actually quite beneficial. But back to so I did my 3-day fast. It was super easy. Felt a little gross on the second day. So, I prepared myself. I got distilled water. I made sure that I didn't have to do anything. We set our kids up with all the food that they needed, and we were, it was 72 hours. I felt like crap the second day, because that's, as I find out, is when the carbs run out. Our bodies have adapted to run on glucose, which isn't necessarily the greatest thing for us, but it works, right? So what you learn is that for us to be healthy, which I don't think there is such a thing, but for us to do well, we need to have a variety. And just running off of glucose, sugar, carbohydrates isn't good. So we store the fat, we absorb the protein, that kind of stuff. It's pretty straightforward. But to really realize how that works, and the amount of calories, processed foods we eat, that was always my big one. So for 5 years, I was a whole food, plant-based Nazi, full on. I wasn't an ethical vegan by any means, because I think you can't be an ethical vegan because there's no such thing as ethics. But that's another story. I'm a philosopher by training, so I'll save you that conversation for later. But I was a health conscious vegan, so it was always about eating a whole food, plant-based diet for health. So that's what, to me, fasting was. So I fasted. I felt like crap, but it was good. You drank your water. We were very strict. We're very good about being very strict. We wanted to be very puristic. So, and then a couple weeks later, I did a 9-day, and my partner did an 11-day fast. And it was, after that second, third day of the extended fast, it was pretty easy. We didn't do anything. We just laid around, watched TV, and drank water. And it wasn't bad. You get a little weak here and there. When you're hungry, you drink water. We just kicked it. And you get into the deep fast, you really feel contemplative. Your brain is, you get into this energy surge, and you feel like you're firing on all pistons. But because we weren't used to it, and we didn't move around very much, we felt very delicate. So we moved very carefully. And if you get, my whole thing, and both of us, if you get up really fast, because you're used to just, right, you just get up. When you're fasting and you're not used to it, man, you'll faint. So be careful. And I fainted the 8th day. I Heather was going up our stairs, and I heard her, like she was struggling or something, and I shot over to help her, and I got up too fast, and it was just like a computer shutting down. It was like and I just went down for like 3 seconds, but I cracked my head, but it wasn't bad. I wasn't hurt, and I was fine. And then you break your fast with small amounts of fruit every 2 hours. Mostly you want to stick with like watery type stuff. So, but that's for the if you're really strict, or if you're gonna do a whole food plant-based diets. I've read people do stupid stuff. You want to be careful when you break a fast. That's a big deal, because especially when so by the time I broke the fast, my digestive system had stopped. I'd lost I want to say about 25 pounds. Yeah. From the two fasts combined, about 25 pounds. Which, if that's your goal, great. I didn't have a goal other than I wanted to experience it. And, I was down to, I think I got to 185, from 208 to 185. And then, of course, I gained it back in all that, because I worked out like crazy. I did P90Xs. That was my thing. And, so after the long fast, I would do 5-day fasts here and there, and it's I really enjoy fasting, and it's I always tell anyone everybody's like, fasting, oh God, I can't do 48, now I'm eating a vegan, mostly vegan ketogenic diet, which is high fat, low carbohydrate, right, with intermittent fasting. And I'll go into that another time. It's fascinating stuff. There's lots of good information on it. Highly recommend it. So what I did back in 2015, I did my fast, and I went right back to the whole food plant-based diet, and continued my athletic training and felt pretty good. And it was really about November of last year, where I had my world exploded when it came to the high carbohydrate diet. And I was reading this book, and I also read this book too. So this book is The Complete Guide to Fasting by Dr. Fung, which was talked about by the guy Christian Vlad Zolt. And I read a book of his second book, which was called Stress and Adaptation Physiology. Stress and Adaptation Physiology. His second book. And so what Christian does is he goes and does the research, or goes and looks at the research, and then practices and experiments. And that's exactly what I did. He's been my inspiration. And that second book was even more interesting, because he brings up the idea of anti-fragility. I'm going to go so much into that you'll be sick of it. But it's really good. It really changed. It really attacked and challenged, both of his books challenged the way we understand food, the way we understand nutrition and exercise. Then you have the Ido Portals of the world challenging the idea of what exercise is and movement. So fasting is definitely on that radar in my mind. So this is my basic little introduction to it, to fasting. I'm not sure how informative it was, but it's too long. I apologize, but it's my experience so far. And when you see me next, I'll embark on my 17-day. So I'll do like daily check-ins and such. And I did a 10-day fast, in February, early March. And it was easy. I don't just water fast. I'll drink coffee during my fast. This time I'm going to do half of it maybe with coffee and then half without. So like one thing my knowledge of fasting, here's another great book, which shows in the picture. I really like this book by Bruner, The Transformational Power of Fasting. This gets into the relationship aspects of life and death and food and fasting, and it's really quite good. I like it a lot. But with the complete guide to fasting, you get more about what fasting is and what you can do with it, and it depends on what kind of fast you want to do. You can be very strict. My very first, that 9-day fast, was very strict. Distilled water, I didn't drink any coffee, I didn't, nothing. And that's a really good way, and I think it's very, very useful. Coffee is the only value of coffee, other than it tastes awesome, is that it's an appetite suppressant. I don't have that problem per se, but I just love my coffee. And you can, there's a lot of debate and research about fasting. Some drink coffee during their intermittent fast. Say, let's say you have a 16-hour fasting window or your fasting time, and they'll drink coffee with the oil in it, the MCT oil, which, if you haven't read anything about, it's the bulletproof coffee. And so in a way, fasting is about not getting knocked out of ketosis, right? So sugar spikes, bad. High carbohydrates, bad. It kicks you out of ketosis, because what happens is when your body's running on that fat, when you add the carbs, it again puts up that wall, and it has to burn through all the carbs to get to the fat, because your body stores it. And it's we're trained, our bodies are adapted to run on glucose first, right? That's why, so that's one of the questions about, don't you burn muscle in a fast? You don't, actually. Not till way down the line, 40 days down the line. I probably will never do a 40-day fast. It's not necessary for me, or I don't want to, but people do all the time, and, they really want to lose a lot of weight, or they really want some deep healing. But as that's recommended, you want doctor supervision, and there's very few doctors that are going to supervise you for a fast, because they're all paid by, pharmaceutical companies and the food industry. So you won't find very few doctors recommending fasting, because it's free. So you don't need a doctor, but if you have health problems or medications, do your research. I am not a doctor. I'm not recommending fasting. You got to do your research, just like I did. And you got to practice. It's a practice. Like trying to do one-arm handstands, which someday I'll get to do. You got to practice it. Or anything. Movement. You got to practice it. It takes time. So, here in this episode 1, if you have any questions or concerns, please leave comments. I might actually read them. I will. And maybe during my 17 days, I'll do a live broadcast on Facebook or something, and you could all send me mean comments. That would be fun, but something to think about. So I hope all 2 of you that watch this enjoy. Thank you for your time.